Hello and welcome to the Island Lamb. I'm Diane and this is episode 41. And I'm taking you on a short walk before we get into our knitting content. I'm walking down the lane of my home and we're going to be heading in a direction I haven't taken you on before. We're going to be heading up the center of Block Island onto Lakeside Drive. And here we go. This is a beautiful part of the island. This is one of those greenway trails that I was telling you about. And look at this little orange mailbox. This is so cute. So if it were hunting season, I would go in here and grab one of these orange vests and put it back at the end of my walk. And this is being provided by the town to keep us safe during hunting season. The greenway paths, you're not allowed to hunt on them, but it's still a good idea to have a vest on. This is Fresh Pond, which is one of the beautiful spring-fed ponds on Block Island. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little walk that I took yesterday morning. It has been a really interesting summer weather-wise on Block Island, and I know for a lot of all over the world we've had some extreme weather. We're very fortunate here on Block Island. We're keeping an eye on Hurricane Debbie, thinking it was going to come up even as a tropical storm, and we had already been having foggy, rainy conditions even before that. And so, you know, we kind of battened down the hatches yesterday before we went to bed, thinking it was going to come up last night and today. And it's absolutely gorgeous out. Yes, we had some rain, we had a little bit of wind, but nothing devastating. And for those people who are planning on their wedding today on Block Island, we are a big wedding destination location. And Saturday is a big day, and so, you know, people were worried, are the ferries going to run? Well, all the ferries are running, and it's glorious, and we're supposed to have really beautiful weather for the next week. So that walk was yesterday morning, in between rain showers, and it was just peaceful and serene, and I pretty much had the path to myself. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I have some footage at the end of the continuation of that walk. All right, but I do have a lot of knitting content today, so let's get to it. Last episode, I was working on the beautiful Ingrid sweater, and I had it on the mannequin, and I told you that I was thinking about what I was going to use for a neck. I was worried about that neckline being too high in wool, and I did go with my intention, which was to pick up the neck stitches as recommended in the pattern, and instead of working the 2x2 rib and then the 1x1 rib, I decided to just do a 1x1 rib, and I knitted up about 2 inches, rolled it over, and I sewed it down. And I've had this on, and I'm very pleased with that. I'm going to be able to wear a turtleneck underneath it. I'm going to be able to wear a shirt with the collar up, which I love that look. Now, due to the humidity and the weather, I just have not blocked yet. I mean, wool would take forever to block if I didn't have a dry day. But now that I'm looking to a couple of days of dry, I plan on getting this on the blocking mat. But oh, I'm just so happy with every aspect of it. And for more information, I talked about this in great detail in the last episode, episode 40. This is a petite knit design. It's called the Ingrid sweater. And I don't know about you, but I don't weave my ends in until after I block. I've kind of learned that if I weave them in before, as I'm manipulating the tension of the finished garment while it's blocking, sometimes the ends will either pop out in the front of the garment or not where I want to see them. So I find that if I block first, I get my dimensions, I get comfortable, I know that's the fabric I want, then I'll sit down and I'll weave in my ends. And I have a lot of blocking to do because, again, the weather hasn't really allowed it. So hopefully over the weekend I'll get these on the blocking mat. And as the weather begins to cool off a little bit, then I'll do a little video or a little couple of photos with my husband shooting me with this on. So when I spoke with you last, I really didn't know what my next project was going to be. And I said I was going to my local yarn shop and that I was also going to go through my stash, that I was quite sure I had a sweater's quantity of several different yarns. And sure enough, I have the Valley yarn, and let me find my glasses, they're right here. Valley yarn, which is Webb's yarn, and Webb's is that yarn company that's in Northampton, Massachusetts. And I had purchased a sweater's quantity of their Northfield, which is a 70% merino, 20% baby alpaca, and 10% silk. And look at the color of that. Is that just gorgeous? Now, several episodes ago, I used this same yarn, but in red, and I made the Lori pullover, which was that gorgeous pullover that had all the baubles, and it was kind of structured. And I really enjoyed working on it. So I had purchased another bag of this. Now the yardage on this is 124 yards on a 50-gram ball. So a sweater's quantity, you need quite a bit of it. And at the same time I bought this, I was already thinking about using it with a mohair. So I picked up Valley Yarns, Southampton, 72% kid mohair and 28% mulberry silk. And this has 230 yards on it. And I know I've shown you these two balls together, but when knitted together, this is what we got. So first, let me talk about this pattern. This is the beautiful Knitting for Olive design called the Olive V-neck cardigan. And other than my Spark cardigan, I really don't have any cardigans. I have made, well, I guess my Fisherman Knit is a cardigan, but I really don't have a lot in the way of cardigans. I don't know why I don't think to make a cardigan. I know some of the patterns I have are all done in pieces, and I think, you know, all those pieces maybe turns me off. I don't know why. But when I saw this pattern and I saw that it was, for the most part, knit back and forth seamlessly, starting at the neck and working across, and then actually I think this piece has worked, the front, left and right, and then the back, and then you pick up the stitches and you work the back, and then you start working back and forth from the left front to the right front. Now I'm going to take it off the mannequin so you can get a better look at this pattern. Again, we haven't blocked, but look at that gorgeous pattern. So things I love, just love about this. Again, it's top down. Is that true? Is this top down? Yes, it's top down. So you're putting on the stitches and working the left front, and then you'll put on the stitches and work the right front. You'll put both of those, bottom of the left front and the right front, on a holder while you begin working, picking up stitches and then working, casting on stitches and working across from shoulder to shoulder. And this is a paid for pattern, so I'm not going to give you all the details of that, but eventually you're going to just be working back and forth. Is that gorgeous? And then a rib bottom. I did the tubular cast off, bind off. You know I had such a good experience using that tubular bind off when I did the Ingrid sweater, so I went for it again. And even carrying the mohair and the other yarn at the same time, I still got the stitches, my needle through. Sorry about that. Saturday, people coming in for the weddings. I had no problem getting the needle through doing the Italian tubular bind off. So here's what's really interesting. You're going to pick up stitches, you're going to work your sleeve. Other than some short row shaping over the top of the sleeve, and we saw the same thing with the Ingrid, so we didn't have a whole lot of bulk underneath the arm. We have really no shaping on the sleeve, no decreases until we get to right before the cuff. And then we're going to have a pretty aggressive decrease, and then we're going to have a 1x1 rib and tubular bind off. Now, I think I mentioned to you several episodes ago that I have a unfinished big project that has sort of haunted me over the years, and it's my colored coat. It's a long coat, and what really stopped me this last time is I was working on the button band. I made the whole button band as a separate piece, and I was going to sew it onto this very long coat, and it was kind of wonky. I didn't like the way it looked. I stopped. And I've stopped on that project for other reasons, but this is the most recent reason why I stopped. And in the back of my mind, I thought I would like to do a double knit button band. I had learned the process in a class on Block Island, but did a little swatch, but never really put it into a garment. So when I read that this was going to be a double knit button band, I said, well, that's awesome. I've been wanting to learn how to do this. I've been wanting to pick that coat up again. And so I went for it. So a little fussy in the beginning because you're going to have to cast on the bottom stitches of the band and connect it to the body, and you have to make sure you're on the wrong side of the right front. And it took me a while. With dyslexia, it takes me a little while. What is left? What is right? What's the front? What's the back? So after maybe a half an hour fiddling with it, the light bulb went on. I said, oh my goodness, this is going to be wonderful. And you're going to mark where you want your buttons beforehand, and the buttons only start at the V-neck and work your way down, so there's only 4 buttonholes, and you make the button as you're knitting the band, and that was fun. So I'm ready to block, weave, and look for some buttons. So I went through my button stash, and I came across these leather buttons, and I have 4 of them. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about the brown leather, but I think I like it. Now my cousin suggested maybe making a knitted button, and I thought about that, and I looked at this. I think I do want some contrast. So let me know what you think, or if you have any other suggestions. But I think I might be onto something. So this was a lot of fun. Now, yes, there are charts. I know we keep going back to this charts. Not everybody likes to do a chart, but as you can see, it's very repetitive. And once you get this down, and by the time you get to the sleeves, you're going to have it, because like I said, you're going to start with a small piece on the left front and a small piece on the right front. You're going to work it through. You're going to start to get, oh, I get it. And by the way, swatching for this, I just decided to work that left front piece because it wasn't that many stitches. I think you cast on like 16 stitches. And I said, well, that's perfect. That gives me a chance to go across the pattern, see how I feel about carrying these 2 yarns together. And I used the recommended needle size, and I got a perfect gauge. So by the time I got to the rest of the body, I knew the pattern really well. So again, if you're hesitant of trying to use charts, some charts are much easier than others. This is only a 1 color. So, and there's only 1 symbol for a purl and 1 symbol for a knit. We had some yarn overs, and we had some make one right and make one left. And once you get those 4 basic, there are a couple of others that appear occasionally on the purl side. Make one left on the purl side, make one right on the purl side. That's it, that's all it was. And the button band, once I got going and once I got past the buttonholes, that was just fun. I did that I kept one side on the long needle, and then I used a double pointed needle for the other side, and you're just going back and forth. Now, if you've never done a double knit band, I think this is similar to brioche, and I haven't done a lot of brioche, but I think there's some similarities. So you knit in the first stitch, and you put the yarn in the front, and you slip the next stitch. You put the yarn in the back, you knit the stitch. You put in the yarn in front, and you slip the next stitch. So you're really taking 2 rows to accomplish completing all the stitches. And you end up really with kind of like 2 pieces of fabric. So this button band is thick. And it's, sometimes I've had problems where the button band is a little too thin to support the button, and the button's flopping, and I have to really think about what kind of button am I going to use. I don't want that buttonhole to stretch. But with this method, you have enough fabric to support the buttons and the buttonholes. Sometimes I find my buttonholes get a little stretched out over time, and I don't think this is going to happen. So I'm really looking forward now to picking up that work in progress that I have, had on the needles for many years, and give this a shot. And maybe I can have that ready for this fall. So again, I did not use the Knitting for Olive recommended yarn. I have used it in the mohair. I've been trying to use it in some other things, and I'll get to that in a minute, but I haven't been able to find it at my local yarn shop. I'm looking forward to trying their silk and their merino, but because I had this in stash, and it worked and I got the right gauge. I was thrilled, and I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough yarn, to be honest with you, and I have plenty, so I could even do maybe, I think, a little shawl or something with what I have left over. Because the Southampton is 230 yards, I really got, almost twice. I only had to, add a new ball twice, half as often as I did with the Northfield. So Webb's is constantly having great sales. Their yarn is discountable. I'm not being sponsored, but you really can't go wrong. And I think that in other parts of the country, it's Lovecraft. Lovecraft bought Webb's. So if you're using Lovecraft, you would be able to find these two yarns. Okay. So then I mentioned to you I wanted to go off island and I was going to visit Mom. Actually, I was going to meet Mom in Wickford, the historical town of Wickford, Rhode Island, where the Mermaid's Pearl is. And I showed you this cute little skirt that I gave Mom, and she's had trouble finding something to wear with it. And so we went into the Mermaid's Pearl, and my intention was to look for some silk, maybe the Knitting for Olive silk in this color lavender. Well, they didn't have the they didn't have the Knitting for Olive silk, but what they did have was the La Bien-Aimée hand-dyed silk tweed. And it is 100% silk noir, which is raw silk. And this color is, and I hope I can say this right, it's that beautiful little sea creature. It's the Anemone. I can't say it. Do you see what I'm saying? Is the camera picking that up? Okay, I'll spell it for you. It's Anemone. Anemone. Anyway, look at this. Okay, now let's see how we did. And what I'm really pleased about is that at the top of the skirt, we're looking at the white panel. So there's enough of a break where you can see that lavender color and where the sweater is gonna fall. And I think it's just perfect. And Mom was very excited. So it comes in a hank. Like I said, it's 100% raw silk. There are 273 yards on a 50-gram skein. That's 250 meters. It feels very dry, raw silk. It doesn't have that sheen that we see with processed silk. They did wind one for me, so I've got to wind these others. So this is one skein, and this is how far I've gotten. So the pattern I chose to make is, let's see, I've got it. Oh, I'm going to put it up here, and I'm also going to talk about it. So this is the outlinetee by Jessie May Martinson of Jessie Made Designs. And Jessie Made has several designs. And we saw this worked up in the yarn shop, and it's meant to be very cropped. And Mom is not terribly long-waisted, and this is a high-waisted skirt, but I won't make it quite as cropped. I think I'll add like 2 more inches to it. And so what I love about this design is there's an intentional drop stitch, and you don't drop the stitch until you get to the end of the piece. So can you see these drop stitches in the front, they're in the back, and they're on the sides. The other thing I'm gonna do for Mom is I'm gonna make the sleeve a little longer. I'm gonna come, down to about here. So I did buy some extra yarn for the extra length and for the sleeve. It's very size inclusive. It goes from extra small to 5XL. So a fitted chest measurement of a 28 to 30 all the way up to a 60 to 62. And this is also going to have quite a bit of positive ease. So knowing that and knowing Mom's size, Mom's a 34 inch, and she wants it a little loose, but not super baggy, because that skirt, I don't think we want some big oversized piece. We want something that's just going to come just a little bit below that band. So I decided to make Mom the extra small, because the 28 to 30 plus the positive ease is going to give a nice, just enough. Mom is going to have to wear a little tank underneath that, or a little tee. It's pretty airy and a little see-through. I mean, not really. She could probably get away without it, but maybe a little something underneath there may make her feel a little bit more confident. I just love this color. And it's working up a little slow. I'm on a 5. The band is a knit one through the back and a purl, which gives that nice raised knit stitch. I love that as well. A regular cast on, but because you're knitting in the back, it really makes the knit stitch more pronounced in the hem. And then that was on a size 4 needle, then we switched to a size 5. And can I give you that in, let's see, so that would be a US 5, a 3.75 millimeter for the main body, a circular, and a US 4, a 3.5 millimeter circular for the ribbing. And you go, you saw that you knit from the bottom up. And because there's so many stitches to cast on, your 200 plus stitches on the cast on, just another little trick and tip that I use, instead of after I get all my stitches casted on and then trying to make sure I haven't twisted anything when I go to, bring them together and knit that first row, I don't. I just knit that whole first row flat. And then when I come back around, I have a little bit more to see. I can tell if I'm twisting, and then I will connect them. And then when I go to do my weaving, I'll just weave off those last 2 stitches, the beginning and the ending stitch of that very first bind on row. So this pattern originally called for a fingering weight yarn, circular needles, you got some stitch markers. It's calling for a scrap yarn. I'm not quite sure where that's going to show up yet. And then an extra needle for a 3 needle bind off. And there you go. I mean, fingering weight, it's your choice of what to use. And I think that this is the perfect, and they had this in a lot of different colors. But again, I wanted this to go with that skirt for Mom. And I also think, and my cousin mentioned this to me as well, this could look really cute in the fall. If you can picture that skirt with that little top, and maybe with a little jacket or a little blouse underneath it. You could take this right into the fall. I mean, these are quite fallish colors, and maybe even with a pair of little booties. So I think Mom, in the long run, is going to end up with a very nice pattern, and I'm very pleased to be able to do that for her. Okay, so talking about lavender and the color lavender. I did finally harvest my lavender, and it was a good thing because of all the rain and fog. If I hadn't, I think the buds would have rotted. This is my last batch. There's no water in here because I wanted this to dry. I usually hang them upside down. Everything that I've had hanging upside down, I've harvested. This is my last bunch, and I just wanted to enjoy it in this pretty picture. But I've made a lot of my sachets already. I buy these little bags on Amazon, and I think they came like hundreds, maybe 200s and it was very inexpensive from Amazon. I've been using them over the years. So I went through, found all my old ones, threw them out, refilled, put them in my cedar chest, put them in my dresser drawers in the closet. Gave some to our niece and nephew were out this weekend. I give them a fresh one every year. I'll bring one to Mom. I'd like to hang one on my bedpost or keep it near the bed. You know, some nights if you're having one of those nights where maybe it's taking you a little while to settle down your mind. A couple of deep breaths of lavender. Right to sleep. So I am including how I did it. So, you know, how I harvested. My husband videoed me while I was rolling it between my hands and getting all the buds. And the other thing I will do with this is I will make some foot scrub. And I'm gonna put more in next year. I mean, I just love it. And it's a very fun, I think, relaxing little project is playing with lavender. Okay, so what else did I want to tell you? What am I thinking about as far as knitting? Okay, I mentioned to you that I want to do a whole episode on Lopi style, or not Scandinavian, Icelandic sweaters. And I have made many over the years. And in that episode, I'll show you some of those photos. But I have lots of these books, the Lopi books. These are the traditional Lopi patterns. Look at this cardigan, this little coat. So I'm going to go through these books and pick out the one I want for myself and go online and purchase some Lopi yarn. I'm looking forward to that. I probably won't start knitting on that right now, but I can start thinking about it. I can start thinking about color combinations, and by the time I get it, hopefully we'll be into September. I mean, today is, I think, August 10th. So, you know, we're getting there. For all of us autumn people, we're getting there. So that's on my mind. I don't know what else I'm going to knit yet. I have another sweaters quantity of the Pearl Soho linen quill. I have it in black. I have it in oatmeal. I have enough to make the V-neck pullover, so I'm thinking about that. So that's where I am with my knitting. I'm very satisfied. I have some projects that I'm going to block, something on the needles, thinking about that Lopi. Let me know what you're thinking about for your fall knitting this year. Do you knit gifts? Are you a gift knitter? I did pick up some sock yarn while I was at my local yarn shop, and I did get one sock done. I thought that was a very holiday color combination. This is that Regia. Do I have the label? Oh, I do still have the label. This is that Regia yarn that I just love. This is the design line, which is the Arnie and Carlos yarn. And there's enough yarn on this to make the 2 socks. I do know how to knit 2 socks at the same time on a circular needle, but when I have a big skein like this, I know I could weigh it and divide it and do that, but I'm in no rush, so I go ahead and take my time. I do one at a time. You know, I like my gusset, I turn my heel, I love that process, and I love the way this yarn works up, the self-patterning yarn. So I'll have socks on the needles from now right until Christmas, because I do give socks as Christmas gifts. Okay, I want to tell you about a book that I'm reading. So this book is a first for this author. She has her doctorate in curriculum and instruction from Teachers College, Columbia University. She's an essay writer, short story writer, but this is her first novel. And she is a native New Yorker, but now she lives in coastal Rhode Island. So she's enjoying our coast. And the book is called Daughters of Nantucket, and her name is Julie Gerstenblatt. This is what the cover looks like. Now look at how pretty. Can you see the whale? And it is historical fiction, and it is set on Nantucket, and it is going to take place around 1846. And we're going to really be hearing the story from women, and I love that, because by 1846, most of the whaling industry had moved to the Pacific. The settlers had really depleted the whale supply in northern New England, and so they were having to go further and further out. So instead of going out for months at a time, they were now going out for years at a time, and leaving their wives, who were probably, you know, maybe with child or have children, alone to fend for themselves with whatever money they had brought in from their last catch, hoping that money would last. And so here's a whole community of women living on Nantucket, very self-sufficient. We are going to experience the abolitionists that were very active in Nantucket. Segregation is going to come up in this book, the whaling industry, and the determination of these women to survive. And that's all I'm going to tell you. It's beautifully written. Hats off to Julie for her first. And let me know if you decide to read it, what you think. I haven't quite finished. I am probably 2/3 through. So, okay, what else did I want to talk to you about? I wanted to let you know that the medical center raised $100,000 with their silent auction, so that was exciting. And I think I also just wanted to let you know, and it may be over by now, that Andrea Mowry always has a birthday pattern sale. And her birthday, it was this week, and she turned 44, and she had a discount on all her patterns. So if you haven't gotten a chance to take a look at the patterns, you might want to take a peek at that. So there you go. August is a glorious month. Hopefully now we're going to have some glorious weather. I'm going to give you just a little teaser. I've been picking my blackberries this year, but not to eat them. I'm going to use them to make a dye. So in one of my previous episodes, I took you through the farmer's market on Block Island and introduced you to Liz Doherty, who owns the shop called the Traveling Seamstress. And she has a shop in town and she does the farmer's market twice a week. And she has put out a little booklet about dyeing fabric and dyeing yarn with naturally dyeing. And so she and I got chatting, and I said, I would love to dye some yarn. I've never done that. Maybe we could do a little podcast together. What should I be collecting? She mentioned avocado pits. She mentioned a couple of things. And then I said, how about, things that maybe would be growing around my yard? And she said, well, do you have blackberries? Well, they're growing all around the perimeter of our yard. She said, pick them, freeze them, and we'll use them, and we'll see how we make out. So what I'm going to do between now and maybe September, after the tourist season is over, is order some, and it's called Bear yarn from Knit Picks, and they sell yarn just for that purpose, for dyeing. So I haven't decided what I want to make yet. I don't really know. I have to talk to Liz again about how much, depending on how many blackberries I accumulate from now until the end of their season, how much dye I'm going to make, how much I can dye, and then what can I make with that, So that's going to probably be like a purpley color. So I got lavender and purple on the mind. I'm going to leave you with a little bit more footage of my walk, and I wish you a beautiful August, and I'll see you soon. Bye.